Carlos Alcaraz outlines how long he wants to compete. Carlos Alcaraz continues to demonstrate that his ambition has no limits. At just 21 years old, the Spanish tennis player has already made it clear that his goal is to stay at the top of the world tennis circuit for many years, following the example of great figures like Novak Djokovic, who continues to compete at the highest level at 38, or Croatian Marin Cilic, who has also successfully extended his career. For Alcaraz, sports longevity is key, and he doesn't hide his desire to reach that age while still fighting for the most important titles on the circuit. Despite his youth, Alcaraz already boasts an impressive career, having won 4 Grand Slam titles, placing him as one of the leading figures of the new generation. Alongside Jannik Sinner, he is considered the main heir to the legendary Big Three formed by Novak Djokovic, Rafael Nadal, and Roger Federer, who have dominated tennis for over 2 decades. Surpassing the records of these 3 giants of the sport is a huge challenge, as together they have accumulated 66 Grand Slams and numerous historic achievements. If Alcaraz wants to write his own legend and aspire to surpass their records, he will need to remain at the top for many years. To achieve this, Alcaraz will need a long and healthy career, and he was asked about this during an interview on Tennis Zone. Specifically, he was asked if he believed he could emulate active tennis players like Novak Djokovic and Marin Cilic. "Hopefully I can last like them, keep playing at a high level at 37, 38 years old," replied the world number 3. However, Carlitos doesn't want to set such long-term goals at the start of his career. "Right now, I'm focused on the next 5 years and, little by little, trying to take care of myself physically and tennis-wise so I can last like them." Carlos Alcaraz continues his 2025 season with his sights set on the demanding schedule ahead in the coming weeks. After his participation in the ATP 250 in Doha, where he was eliminated in the quarterfinals, the young Spaniard is already preparing for one of the most important challenges of the year, the Sunshine Double, the hard court swing that includes the Masters 1000 events in Indian Wells and Miami. Alcaraz will defend his title in Indian Wells, a tournament where he has claimed victories in 2023 and 2024, solidifying himself as one of the biggest names in the California desert. However, the Spaniard has an unfinished business in Miami, where he is yet to lift the trophy despite showing great form in previous editions. With the ambition to continue adding major titles to his resume, the current world number 2 will try to win the Masters 1000 in Florida for the first time. Before heading to the US, Alcaraz will make a stop in Puerto Rico to play an exhibition match against American Frances Tiafoe on March 2nd. It will be a great opportunity to enjoy his talent before the demanding North American swing. Carlos Alcaraz ditches his big change before Indian Wells. Carlos Alcaraz has been testing a new string for his racket in Murcia ahead of the US swing, but just hours after trying it, he reverted to his old one, the one he feels most comfortable with. This week, we are witnessing top-level tennis at the ATP 500 events in Acapulco and Dubai, but almost all the major players have preferred to wait a week for the second big tournament of the year, marking the beginning of a very intense month. We are talking about the first Masters 1000 of the year, Indian Wells, which will begin on March 5th and will kick off the hard court swing in the US, which will also take players to Miami before moving on to the clay court swing from April to June. Well, for the Californian event, defending champion Carlos Alcaraz was set to arrive with a significant change that he has now discarded. On Tuesday, he was seen training at his home in El Palmar, where he presented a major change in his tests, as his racket had a new orange string that seemed to be what he would use in these tournaments. However, it didn't last long, as on Wednesday, when he returned to the court, he was again using the black strings. The Babolat racket of the world number 3 has undergone several adjustments in recent months, and this was just one more. He had added a few grams of weight to his racket this preseason, and now this was going to be the next step, but it won't happen. It seems the session didn't go as well as he expected, so he has returned to what has worked for him until now. However, there are still a few days before his trip, and even more before his debut in the Coachella Valley, so another attempt is still possible. Heading to Puerto Rico. Although Indian Wells doesn't start until March 5th, Carlos will return to the court before that. Specifically, on March 2nd, he will face Frances Tiafoe in San Juan, Puerto Rico's capital. The American and the Spaniard have a good relationship, and they met for another exhibition match in Charlotte last December. This time, they've chosen Puerto Rico, in a duel that will serve as a tribute to Tokyo Olympic gold medalist Monica Puig. Despite continuous criticism of Alcaraz for playing too many exhibitions, he hasn't missed the opportunity to play another one and earn a good amount of money. A tennis player breaks down the differences between Jannik Sinner and Carlos Alcaraz to beat them. The world number 4, Taylor Fritz, has given the keys to beating the two players who are set to dominate the next big rivalry in world tennis. With less than a week to go until the start of the first Masters 1000 of the season in Indian Wells, Carlos Alcaraz will play in the Californian tournament, unlike Jannik Sinner, who will begin his doping suspension that has caused an uproar in the tennis world. American Taylor Fritz, who is ranked 4th in the world, has had a rough start to the year. He was eliminated in the third round of the Australian Open by veteran Gael Monfils and is carrying an abdominal injury. He approaches Indian Wells with the opportunity to regain his good form. In an interview with Tennis Zone, Fritz discussed what strategy could work to defeat the Spaniard in a possible matchup in California. With someone like Carlos, the backhand to backhand is a little better for me. With Jannik, I would definitely mix the patterns a bit more, maybe work a bit more with my forehand, Fritz said, noting that to beat both, you have to have a different strategy. Moreover, Fritz emphasized that, depending on certain conditions, the strategy may not work. It depends on the surface, the balls, and the speed of the court. If it's slower, I can't play with the backhand against these guys because they'll just overpower me and hurt me. A journalist accidentally leaks Carlos Alcaraz's phone number, causing a stir on social media. This past Sunday, Argentine tennis player Sebastián Báez successfully defended his title at the ATP 500 event in Rio de Janeiro by defeating Frenchman Alexandre Müller 6-2, 6-3 in the final. However, this wasn't what garnered the most attention in the Brazilian city. Hours after the Argentine's victory, an incident from the 2024 edition came to light. Brazilian journalist Demetrio Vecchioli made a major privacy blunder, and a fault in the tournament system made private information about Carlos Alcaraz, who participated in the 2024 edition, public. This should never have been disclosed. Vecchioli revealed on his X account that he had found passports, phone numbers, and other sensitive documents that could be exploited by hackers, including the number of the Spanish player, the current world number 3. I was doing a search on one of them in the government's online platform, and I found what was being said, accessible to everyone, the journalist claimed, adding that he alerted the authorities before publishing the article. The magnitude of the case was such that the reporter mentioned that he took advantage of the leaked phone number to write to the player and inform him of what had happened, to which Alcaraz responded. A thing of the past. As we mentioned, this incident happened last year. Currently, the Spanish player is preparing for his upcoming tournaments, which will be the first two Masters 1000 events of the year, Indian Wells, March 5th to 16th, and Miami, March 19th to 30th. This U.S. swing will be crucial for Carlos Alcaraz, who has the opportunity to close the gap in the ATP rankings, taking advantage of Jannik Sinner's 3-month suspension. Currently, Alcaraz is 3,820 points behind the Italian, so any good result in these tournaments could bring him closer to the top spot. In Indian Wells, where he defends the title he won last year, Carlitos will have significant pressure on him, but also the motivation to defend a crown that solidified his status as one of the most promising players on the circuit. In Miami, the challenge will be just as demanding. There, he will seek to regain confidence in his game and try to repeat his 2022 victory, a significant achievement in his career. Winning both tournaments would give him the opportunity to claim the coveted Sunshine Double, a title that only a few players in tennis history have accomplished. Names like Michael Chang, Roger Federer, Novak Djokovic, Jim Courier, Andre Agassi, Pete Sampras, and Marcelo Rios have all achieved this honor, highlighting how special it is to reach such a feat. Without a doubt, Alcaraz has what it takes to achieve it, and these two tournaments will provide the perfect opportunity to continue growing and get closer to the world number 1 spot.